Chapter 15. The little man, named Grenouille, first uncorked the demijohn of alcohol. Heaving the heavy vessel up gave him difficulty. He had to lift it almost even with his head to be on a level with the funnel that had been inserted in a mixture of bottle, and into which he poured the alcohol directly from the demijohn without bothering to use a measuring glass. Baldini shuddered at such concentrated ineptitude. Not only had the fellow turned the world of perfumery upside down by starting with the solvent without having first created the concentrate to be dissolved, but he was also hardly even physically capable of the task. He was shaking with exertion, and Baldini was waiting at any moment for the heavy demijohn to come crashing down and smash everything on the table to pieces. The candles, he thought. For God's sake, the candles. There's going to be an explosion. He'll burn my house down. And he was about to lunge for the demijohn and grab it out of the madman's hands when Grenouille set it down himself, getting it back on the floor all in one piece, and stopped it. A clear, light liquid swayed in the bottle, not a drop spilled. For a few moments, Grenouille panted for breath, with the look of contentment on his face, as if the hardest part of the job were behind him. And indeed, what happened now proceeded with such speed that Baldini could hardly follow it with his eyes, let alone keep track of the order in which it occurred, or make even partial sense of the procedure. Grenouille grabbed, apparently at random, from the row of essences in the flagons, pulled out the glass stoppers, held the contents under his nose for an instant, splashed a bit of one bottle, dribbled a drop or two of another, poured a dash of a third into a funnel, and so on. Pipette, test tube, measuring glass, spoons, and rods, all utensils that allow the perfumer to control the complicated process of mixing. Grenouille did not so much as touch a single one of them. It was as if he were just playing, splashing and swishing like a child busy cooking up some ghastly brew of water, grass and mud, which he then asserts to be soup. Yes, like a child, thought Baldini. All at once, he looks like a child, despite his ungainly hands, despite his scarred, pockmarked face, and his bulbous old man's nose. I took him to be older than he is, but now he seems much younger to me. He looks as if he were 3 or 4, looks just like one of those unapproachable, incomprehensible, willful little pre-human creatures, who in their ostensible innocence think only of themselves, who want to subordinate the whole world to their despotic will, and will do it too if one let them pursue their megalomaniacal ways, and did not apply the strictest pedagogical principles to guide them to the disciplined, self-controlled, fully human existence. There was just such a fanatical child trapped inside this young man, standing at the table with his eyes aglow, having forgotten everything around him, apparently no longer aware that there was anything else in the laboratory but himself, and these bottles that he tipped into the funnel with nimble awkwardness to mix up an insane brew that he would confidently swear and would truly believe to be the exquisite perfume Amor and Psyche. Baldini shuddered as he watched the fellow bustling about in the candlelight, so shockingly absurd and so shockingly self-confident. In the old days, so he thought, and for a moment he felt as sad and miserable and furious as he had that afternoon while gazing out onto the city glowing ruddy in the twilight, in the old days, people like that simply did not exist. He was an entirely new specimen of the race, one that could arise only in exhausted, dissipated times like these. But he was about to be taught a lesson, this impertinent boy. He would give him such a tongue lashing at the end of this ridiculous performance that he would creep away like a shriveled pile of trash he had been on arrival. Vermin. One dared not get involved with anyone at all these days. The world was simply teeming with absurd vermin. Baldini was so busy with his personal exasperation and disgust at the age that he did not really comprehend what was intended when Grenouille suddenly stoppered up all the flacons, pulled the funnel out of the mixing bottle, grabbed the neck of the bottle with his right hand, cupped it with the palm of his left, and shook it vigorously. Only when the bottle had been spun through the air several times, its precious contents sloshing back and forth like lemonade between belly and neck, did Baldini let loose a shout of rage and horror. "Stop it!" he screeched. "That's enough! Stop at this moment, Buster! Put that bottle back on the table and don't touch anything else. Do you understand? Nothing else. I must have been crazy to listen to your asinine gibberish. The way you handle these barbaric bungler and a beastly, cheeky, snot-nosed brat besides. You wouldn't make a good lemonade mixer, not even a good licorice water vendor, let alone a perfumer. Just be glad, be grateful and content that your master lets you slop around in tanning fluids. Do not dare it ever again, do you hear me? Do not dare even again to set foot across the threshold of a perfumer's shop." Thus spoke Baldini, and even as he spoke, the air, olifactory imagery, guys, olifactory imagery. And even as he spoke, you decide over the next little bit which one you are going to use in your discussion, okay? Because, as I said before, 5 of you could come up with something completely different, but it is your argument that makes it correct. Think about the olfactory imagery, okay? How he describes the scent in the air, okay? And even as he spoke, the air around him was saturated with the odor of a Moran psyche. Odors have a power of persuasion stronger than that of words, appearances, emotions, or will. The persuasive power of an odor cannot be fended off. It enters us like breath into the lungs. It fills us up, imbues us totally. There is no remedy for it. Grenouille had set down the bottle, removing his perfume-moistured hand from its neck and wiping it on his shirt tail. 1, 2 steps back, and the clumsy way he hunched his body together under Baldini's tirade sent enough waves rolling out into the room to spread the newly created scent in all directions. Nothing more was needed. True, Baldini ranted on, railed and cursed, but with every breath his outward show of rage found less and less inner nourishment. He sensed he had been proved wrong, which was why his peroration could only soar to empty pathos. And when he fell silent, had been silent for a good while, he had no need of Grenouille's remark. It's all done. He knew that already. But nevertheless, although in the meantime air heavy with a Moran psyche was undulating all about him, he stepped up to the old oak table to make his test. He pulled a fresh, snowy white lace handkerchief from his coat pocket, the left one, unfolded it and sprinkled it with a few drops that he extracted from the mixing bottle with a long pipette. He waved the handkerchief with outstretched arm to aerate it, and then pulled it past his nose with a delicate, well-practiced motion, soaking up its scent, letting it out again in little puffs. He sat down on a stool, where before his face had been bright red with erupting anger. All at once he had grown pale. Incredible, he murmured softly to himself. By God, incredible. And he pressed the handkerchief to his nose again and again, and sniffed and shook his head and muttered, incredible. It was Amor and Psyche. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, Amor and Psyche, that despicable, ingenious blend of scents, so exactly copied that now even Pelusier himself would have been able to distinguish it from his own product. Incredible. Small and ashen. The great Baldini sat on his stool, looking ridiculous with handkerchief in hand, pressing it to his nose like an old maid with the sniffles. By now he was totally speechless. He didn't even say incredible anymore, but nodded gently, and staring at the contents of the mixing bottle could only let out a monotone After a while, Grenouille approached, stepping up to the table soundlessly as a shadow. It's not a good perfume, he said. It's been put together very bad, this perfume has. Said Baldini, and Grenouille continued, if you'll let me, Mater, I'll make it better. Give me a minute, and I'll make a proper perfume out of it. Said Baldini and nodded, not in consent, but because he was in such a helplessly apathetic condition that he would have said, and nodded at anything. And he went on nodding and murmuring, and made no effort to interfere as Grenouille began to mix away a second time, pouring the alcohol from the demijohn into the mixing bottle, a second time right on top of the perfume already in it, tipping the contents of flacons a second time in apparently random order and quantity into the funnel. Only at the end of the procedure, Grenouille did not shake the bottle this time, but swirled it about gently like a brandy glass, perhaps in deference to Baldini's delicacy, perhaps because the contents seemed more precious to him this time only than, as the liquid whirled about in a bottle, did Baldini awaken from his numbed state and stand up, the handkerchief still pressed to his nose, of course, as if he were arming himself against yet another attack upon his most private self. All is done, Mater. Now, it is a really good scent, said Grenouille. Yes, yes, fine, fine, Baldini replied, and waved him off with his free hand. Do you want I test it? Grenouille gurgled on. Do you want to, mater? Aren't you going to test it? Later. I'm not in the mood to test it at the moment. Have other things on my mind. Go now. Come on. And he picked up one of the candlesticks and passed through the door into the shop. Grenouille followed him. They entered the narrow hallway that led to the servants' entrance. The old man shuffled up to the doorway, pulled back the bolt, and opened the door. He stepped aside and let the lad out. Can't I come to work for you, mater? Can't I? Grenouille asked, standing on the threshold, hunched over again, the lurking look returning to his eye. I don't know, said Baldini. I shall think about it. Go. And then Grenouille had vanished, gone in a split second, swallowed up by the darkness. Baldini stood there and stared into the night. In his right hand, he held the candlestick, in his left, the handkerchief, like someone with a nosebleed, but in fact he was simply frightened. He quickly bolted the door. Then he took the protective handkerchief from his face, shoved it into his pocket, and walked back through the shop to his laboratory. The scent was so heavenly fine, that tears welled into de Baldini's eyes. He did not have to test it. He simply stood at the table in front of the mixing bottle and breathed. The perfume was glorious. It was to Amour Psyche as a symphony is to the scratching of a lonely violin. And it was more. Baldini closed his eyes and watched as the most sublime memories were awakened within him. He saw himself as a young man walking through the evening gardens of Naples. He saw himself lying in the arms of a woman with dark curly hair, and saw the silhouette of a bouquet of roses on the windowsill as the night wind passed by. He heard the random song of birds and the distant music from a harbour tavern. He heard whisperings at his ear. He heard, I love you, and felt his hair ruffle with bliss now. Now, at this very moment, he forced open his eyes and groaned with pleasure. This perfume was not like any perfume known before. It was not a scent that made things smell better, nor some sachet, some toiletry. It was something completely new, capable of creating a whole world, a magical, rich world, and in an instant you forgot all the loathsomeness around you and felt so rich, so ease, so free, so fine. The hairs that had ruffled up on Baldini's arm fell back again, and a befuddling peace took possession of his soul. He picked up the leather, the goat leather, lying on the table's edge, and the knife, and trimmed away. Then he laid the pieces in the glass basin and poured the new perfume over them. He fixed a pane of glass over the basin, divided the rest of the perfume between two small bottles, applied labels to them, and wrote the words Nuit Napolitaine on them. Then he extinguished the candles and left. Once upstairs, he said nothing to his wife while they ate. Above all, he said nothing about the solemn decision he had arrived at that afternoon, and his wife said nothing either, for she noticed that he was in good spirits, and that was enough for her. Nor did he wake over the Notre Dame to thank God for his strength of character. Indeed, that night he forgot for the first time ever to say his evening prayers. I'm talking about Baldini and his decline, okay, the perfume moves through the air. It blooms. It does many different things. He understands it. He understands that there is an air in his studio right now, and it is an olfactory imagery that is used by Susskind. But the most important thing is that he's aware of it, but he doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand how it's been created. He doesn't understand how somebody so young has been able to do this with such inexperience. Okay? And the smell becomes a symbol of his, and here I'm talking about Baldini, of his ignorance, of his uselessness, of his impotence, of himself being, how can I say it, an outsider in his own profession. Okay? Smell, smell as social power. Punto. Okay? That is, oh my God, that is what I argued years ago in one of my essays. Okay? See how you go. I'm bloody sure you'll be able to do it. Because you know Baldini, you know Grenouille, you know how Susskind is using olfactory imagery, okay, to put Grenouille up here and Baldini way down with the also-rans, okay? And for the guy, it is unfathomable, unbelievable, incomprehensible that something like this could happen. But it did. Okay? So, you know the words, you can pick at the imagery to talk about his impotence, to talk about how he is an outsider in his own profession. You could talk about him as but the things that we're looking for are the blooms, you know, the metaphors. Okay, one thing you need to pick up is the metaphor. Okay, some of the times that I pointed out. Okay? Excellent. Imagery is an amazing thing to look at in the next part of our reading, which will be taking place over the next 8 weeks. I've been telling my friends, some of my friends in the UK, and they're like, "Oh, how much time are you spending on it?" "Oh, 12 weeks, 13 weeks," and they're like, "Oh, how envious." Why? Because they have to have everything finished so fast, and they have to, and then it's the next one. Okay, so we have the ability over the next 4 or 5 weeks to really get into the crux of vocabulary, but especially as my teacher said to me when I was 15, 16, 17, that she would always say to us, remember, the adverb does to the verb as the adjective does to the noun. And we would go, okay, the adverb does to the verb as the adjective does to the noun. But what does the adverb and the adjective do? They describe things. What do they describe? They describe the verb and they describe the noun. Okay? But for us, the readers, that's the most important thing. What they describe to us, the readers, okay, we read the words, and what happens is that we create this imagery in our brains, in our imaginations. We can put all of those words into the things that we're thinking about and imagining. Okay? And because we've all had different experiences in life. I was born in Australia. You were born in you were raised in Mexico, but you come from different families. You come from different experiences. You have different histories. You have been to different places. You've spoken with different people. So we can all read the same words, but the beauty of literature is that those words create different images in every single one of us based on our experiences. Beautiful. I love that. Yes, Miss Irene Werchler. I remember my teacher from Morialta High School. Excellent, fantastic. Have a great thinking process on how to get that down, and I'm bloody sure you can do it. Take care, guys. See you tomorrow.